Data Science and Machine Learning with R. Basically, in today's session, I have specifically taken these two uh, terminologies because these two things, which are very much there in our book, these are widely used to make a lot of useful systems. So I can just give you a glance of how small codes, just one line codes, can be very helpful in writing big, meaningful programs. To start with, we all know data science today is the buzzword. We all are using data. For example, we all know that companies like sales and for marketing, they are being used for upskilling the for finding that. Just a second, there's some technical. Yeah. Companies are used to using these data sciences to analyze data of the customers to find target audience. Like HR team are using data science analyzing data of they have so many they get so many CVs every day. They cannot scrutinize everything manually. So they're using data science to find out potential candidates for the job. Then even in universities, when you apply, they are analyzing your data and then shortlisting them to call them for the entrance exams or for the interviews. Companies like DHL, FedEx, UPS, they are all using for transporting data. For transporting shipments, they are using using data to find out the best routes. Then companies like Amazon, Facebook, you must have seen. You open an Amazon, you find a product there, and every time similar products would be recommended, and even the same product. Um, Facebook using your data it is being analyzed. Your recommended friends and the products you may be interested in. So every company is using data science these days, and the widespread use of this technology can be understood from the very fact that even today, today, yeah, not even just BTech students, in fact, BCA students, BSc students, and in fact, BBA students, like studying commerce, they have to study a paper on data science and analyzing data to predict future demand of the customers. So that is very much there in their syllabus. So no company can survive today without applying data sciences these days. So, like, there are some more examples. Spotify is using data science to recommend music. Gmail is using for spam filtering. You've seen that there's a folder in Gmail which automatically puts a mail which it thinks is not promotional email or may contain some malware. So it puts that email into the spam folder. How does it make it find certain words like easy loan, big business prizes? So all those things are not genuine. They are not common. So it automatically puts those emails into the spam folder. So then computer vision techniques, like we all know, driving metro, we are hearing here in Delhi. Then self-driving cars, they all use data science to understand where the obstacle is so that they can uh, change their paths accordingly. So these machines are continuously collecting the data, analyzing them, and taking necessary actions. Then companies like Visa, all have Visa debit cards and credit cards we are using. So these companies are using by card companies to analyze customers, those who may go for may have commit some fraud in future. So like if the company analyzes data that a particular customer is spending only 10,000 per month, but this month in a day it has the customer is trying to spend at least 50,000 or 1 lakh. So that is a deviation, that's an outlier. So only after analyzing the data one can predict that something wrong is going to be done. Then company Procter and Gamble are using uh, data sciences to predict future demand. Even companies, even if a new product is coming, companies are analyzing those data to find out what should be the price. Like if I price a product little higher than the competitor's product, then no, there's a possibility that not many people would buy. Similarly, if the product is little lower than the competitors, then people may think that the quality has been compromised. So you have to be you must be data driven, and hence we need to study about data sciences. Now, science life cycle model. When you start with data sciences, you start with data discovery. First, we collect data from the like we have to today. It's very simple to collect data. We just put a Google form and uh, get those data filled from the we have a very target, you know people. Now not everybody is filling this same form, so we need to we collect data, we prepare data, because data preparation is the most tedious thing that I have found. Like cleaning the data, filling the missing values, we often, like whenever there is an option to fill of data or not, we always leave it blank. So, and leaving a field blank does hampers the data analysis part. So you need to fill the data with missing values. You need to clean the data. Sometimes we give incorrect data. We all must have done that. Like whenever they are asking for a phone number or address, it's not necessary that we'll be filling the right answer. They ask date of birth. So see, this data is, required. Like we want to see which age group is going for our products. Like, but if you are say writing wrong age, then your results may not be accurate. So for data preparation, we need to, and some, if I say rate this website, some would be rating it on a scale of 1 to 10. Some would be rating 1 to 5. So until and unless specified the correct scale, so these things may vary from one person to another. So like then we need to prepare the data. We need to standardize, we need to clean, we need to fill the missing values. Then we apply some mathematical models. Like we have lots of machine learning models, each model being applicable and being useful for another, for a different situation. Then we need we the, then once we apply the machine learning model, whatever learning we have, we implement it and we communicate it with the users so that the information can be utilized. Going to the next slide. Now we have different machine learning models. All these models we've discussed in the book, like the basic categories. Broadly, we can divide it into supervised learning, unsupervised, semi-supervised, and then reinforcement learning. In supervised learning, we already label the data. Like if I give you a student and I tell you we categorize it as a good student or an average student, what are you going to do? You are going to compare it. You know that the characteristics of a good student is he must be getting good marks, like marks above 75%. So if this new student is getting marks 75% above, he's a good student, otherwise he's an average student. So you know the classification. Right? Unsupervised means we do not know anything. Now, new student comes, we don't know how he behaves. So what we will do is we will observe his behavior, and then we don't know anything. But then after observing the behavior, we can make clusters. Like this is a notorious boy or this is a sincere boy. So we don't have any data about the background of the boy nor of the two groups. Like very common example that we often go through is. Segregating fruits for in a fruit basket. What is the machine does not know what a mango is, what an apple is, but just looking at the color, if it's a yellow color fruit, it goes in this group. If it's a red color group, it goes in this group. So that is unsupervised learning. Semi supervised, we have little bit of data and then we apply a little bit of learning of our algorithm. Reinforcement learning is basically using robotics and game playing. Like we have a system of rewards and punishments. Like if you go do the correct step, you get an award. If you go to the right if you take the wrong step, you get a punishment. Like if the robot is working, if it sees that there is an obstruction, if there are two paths, if it chooses one path but finds obstruction in one path, then it gets a punishment because that path was not correct. If it goes the other way, if it leads to its destination, it gets an award. So that next time the robot has to travel the same path, it knows that following this instinct gave me the reward and following this path gave me a punishment. So whether it's a supervised learning or unsupervised learning, we can apply algorithms for regression and classification. By regression may we are predicting a numerical value, like to uh, to calculate what should be the best price of the product. We are finding out a numerical value. So if I make a mathematical model to know how much marks you are going to score in your next exam, so that is regression. And classifications mean I am broadly classifying you into categorical data, whether you're a good student or an average student. Then we are using for clustering. Clustering may basically done when we don't have any background data. So how we can classify, how we can group, we don't know. So we cluster. Like clustering may we know that the normal behavior is 10,000 rupees every day is spent, but today 1 lakh rupees is being sent to the credit card. So this is an outlier. It doesn't go into the cluster, stand with the cluster. So we can also use it for speech analysis, text analysis, and all those applications. Next is your applications of R. Now, why this R language? R, there's always been, should I use R? Why should I? Because there's so many languages coming up. Even Java, in Java, you can do data science applications. Python is there, Julia is there, and so many other things. But why R? So R is now a mature language that is already being used by Google, by Ford, by Twitter. Then U.S. National Weather is using R to for severe to predict flooding. Then it is used by Human Rights Data Analytics. New York Times is using R. Facebook, and again Ford is repeated. So all these companies are already using R. Microsoft, Mozilla, Thomas Cook, name any big company, and it is there. So they are all using for predicting house prices and local crime. Then ANZ is using for fraud detection. It's an Australian bank. So R is already being used. Now, I'm often being asked why R in Python, because Python is now gaining popularity. So many people ask why not Python? Why R? So, if you see the trend, usually non-coders, Python is a more comprehensive language. You can do multiple things, many things in Python. And R is specifically meant for data science, machine learning, and I personally, because I've done data science and machine learning both in R and in Python, so even I find R very easy, since R was in fact the first language in which I did my data science projects. R is easy, and even in colleges and universities across the globe, R is being used by non uh, technical people like MBA, BBA students, commerce background, economics students. They all use R because it's basically it has an extensive library for statistical functions. Then Python is something like it is also very good at data science and machine learning, but it is mainly meant for technical people. Little not tough, I would say, but if you say if they both are equal, then if you say which one, then I would say R for simplicity. These days, in fact, when I started my data science projects in Python, everybody used to tell me to switch to Python. Reason being that only that deep learning applications can be done in Python, not in R. But now this scenario has also changed. There are many packages in which auto ML and deep learning can also be done in R. So I would consider both of them as equal. So it's upon your which one do you want to learn, and basically on the company in which the project comes. So they both are equally powerful today. Now, if we go to the small codes, I just wanted to discuss these small codes so that even the beginners, because most of our audience is the student group who have not even tried both the languages. So I just want to show, like even I am being a technical person, I have done my programming in C++ and C. I've written long codes and I enjoy writing those codes. But if you see, uh, whether it's for data science applications, you are just writing 2 line 3 line very small codes, and big applications and big complex tasks you can perform. So here we have a data set. There are multiple data sets in R that are already pre-installed, and some of them you can install it also just with a click of a mouse. So here there's a data frame, tooth growth, and see, you are adding a new column. Like if the length of the tooth is less than 10, then the condition of the tooth is all well, else you need then there's a need to be caution to be generated. So here, so simply you have added a new column, df dot dollar condition. So a new column is added. If else, you are using the if else function and assigning the value to those columns. Then here there's another program. Write a program to create a vector with certain values. Here random data is being used to create a vector. And see, when I started with working with data science projects, I needed data, random data, and not the data sets that were already available, just to test my code. So I found it very useful that I could create any amount of random data with very small, with one line codes. Like I'm here, we have used the REP function, the repeat function. 1:5 means any value from 1 to 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 4 times it will be repeated. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have a data set ready with us, and then we have used the sum function. If else a is less than 3, 1, comma 0. That is, if I want to find how many values in my data sets are greater than 3. So I am using just one line code. I am using if else function and the sum function. If the value is greater than 3, I am counting, then I would be summing in the sum, I'll be adding 1. If the value is less than 0, I'll be adding 0. So this makes my work very simple. Imagine how many lines of code has to be written for the same thing if had to be done in C or C++. Then generating random data. Um, we have many functions basically to generate random data. Runif is one of them. Basically, this function is used uh, to generate data having a uniform distribution. In the next few slides, we'll see what uniform distribution actually means. Uniform to be very precise, it's like almost same values. So run if 5, 1, comma 10. Here the syntax is how many values you want to generate. I want to generate 5 values in the range 1 to 10. So it has given me some values. Next data is sample. Next function is sample. The syntax of the sample function is data, size, how many values you want, you want these values with replacement or without replacement, and probability. You can also specify. Um, like we've done a lot of problems in classes 1 to 12. I mean, not 1 to 12, but yes, from class 9, we've learning probability. So how much, like 70% or 80%, whatever, what is the probability with which you want to find out data. So we'll be using these functions here. Like there's a data set and you want to select only 6 rows randomly. So for random data, we are using the sample function and one. This is colon n row faithful. Faithful is the name of the data set. N row means number of rows in faithful. For example, if it has 100 rows, so from 1 to 100, you need to find any 6. This is the value of size. Any 6 randomly you will pick up indexes, and then you're printing it here. Faithful index, the entire row will be printed. So whether suppose if I got 5, then I got 15, then I got 20. So those rows will be printed. Next, randomly selects 5 samples from numbers 1 to 10 with replacement. So here you are telling the dataset from where to select 1 to 10, any value from 1 to 10. You need 6 samples. You need 6 values randomly chosen with replacement is equal to 2. See, you have put replacement is equal to 2. So 2, but just by chance, 2 has been repeated. It has been selected twice. But if you put replacement is equal to false, once a number is picked, it will never be picked again. Then here is the graph that I was talking about, uniform distribution and normal distribution. In a uniform distribution, almost all the values are almost same. But in a normal distribution, the values vary. One main feature of these of normal distribution is your mean is equal to 0 and standard deviation is 1. So here you have used the function rnorm bracket with 5. So you are generating 5 values having mean is equal to 0 and standard deviation is equal to 1. So you are not writing any big code, just a small simple one-liner function. Then standardizing data is very important. As I told you, then the scales vary. For example, if you see the CBSE board, CBSE board gives outstanding if you get 90 plus marks, but another board may give you an outstanding category if you have 80 plus. So the scales vary. If I say whether this website is good or bad, I can give you points from 0 to 5, or I can give you points from 0 to 10. So when I'm analyzing data, the rating from 0 to getting 0 to 5, if I get 5, that rating will suffer when compared with a rating of 9 or even 6, 7. Right? So we need to standardize data so that it falls under the same range. So for that we use the scale function. What See, here is an example: scale orange dollar age. So orange is the name of the data set, dollar age is the column. So I want to standardize the age column. Center is equal to true and scale is equal to false. So here the mean will be subtracted and divided by the standard deviation automatically. I don't have to do any mathematical computations for that. Now here is a sample code. There's already a predefined data set in R, that is women data set, and it has it has height and women of all the date records. What we are supposed to do here is print the number of rows and the number of columns. To print the number of rows, we have a function n row, and to print the number of columns, we have a function n col. Then to find out the maximum height, we just have and see. All these languages, basically, if you see the hierarchy, the generation of languages, first generation language, second generation, I hope you all know, third generation language, fourth generation language, and fifth generation language. In first generation language, we had machine language where we did coding in zeros and ones only. Okay. In second generation language, we have the assembly language program where we use mnemonics, add a comma b. So we use symbols. In third generation languages, we have all those languages like C, C++, Java, Fortran, Basic, COBOL, all those were third generation languages where we had to tell the computer what has to be done and how it has to be done. We had to write big, big codes. Then came the fourth generation language. Fourth generation language may we have your SQL. You are writing your English-like sentences. So see, these languages R and Python basically comes in your fourth generation languages because it's uses like English-like syntaxes. You're just telling what has to be done in you don't have to write big codes, you're just telling in very small English like instructions. So I want to find maximum height of a woman. So woman is the data set, height is the name of the column, and what I want to find is maximum, so max. Then my next task is to find out the weight corresponding to the maximum height. So I want to find the weight of the woman having maximum height. So here that means I want to have a subset from the data set. So W is my data set. Height is where height is equal to max height. I want only that subset where height is exactly equal to max height. So this is what I have to write. And the last task here is height and weight, where height is greater than 70 and weight is greater than 130. So you're putting two conditions here, but still it's just a one-line code. So you're finding the subset of the data set where this height is the name of the column, is greater than 70, and the AND operator, the binary operator that we've been using very frequently, then weight is less than 130. Weight is another name of another column. So you are just supplying conditions here. So that makes our work very easy. Next, the cut function. The cut function is basically used to, again, divide the data, categorical data into factors or intervals. For example, let's look at the code to understand this. This is a random data, details, data.frame. I'm putting all the random data generated into, clubbing it into one data frame. So the field of this data frame is patient ID. I have taken randomly from 1 to 100. 1, 2, 3, 4. It will be in sequence. I want to make a data frame containing 100 rows. So about 100 patients. So the sequence number goes from 1 to 100. Age I have taken randomly because otherwise I had to supply the data. So I have I have been using the runif function to I'm generating 100 data for 100 patients in the age group 0 to 100. So my minimum age of the patient is 0 and maximum age is 100. Then registration year, the year in which the person was hospitalized. So again, randomly I'm generating using the sample function. Paste is used to concatenate it to strings. Like, so what paste is doing is 19, comma 47 colon 99. 47 colon 99 means any number from 47 to 99 will be picked up randomly and then pasted with 19. So if I get a random number, say 80, so my this registration year would become 1980, and then replace is equal to true because I allow my any two patients to have the same registration year. So now my random data set is ready. So now what I'm doing is using the cut function to see the data in age groups. For example, if you see, look at the output. I want 5 breaks is equal to 5. So I want to cut the age group in 5 intervals. So it has automatically taken the minimum age group and the maximum age group that was returned is minimum was 0.175 and maximum was 99.7. So in this range of values, it has made 5 intervals. And see, the output may vary depend because randomly the data is being selected. So in this age group, from 0 to 20, I had 23 patients. From the age group, in the age group 20 to 40, I had 18 patients. 40 to 60, I had 24 patients. So see how easy it becomes to analyze the data. If I want to see, uh, the main reason behind writing these codes in R or in Python or whatever language is that you have so much flexibility. You have the power. You can analyze the data in just any way you want. You can even change the intervals. You can change the columns on which you want to have these breaks. Next is the very powerful function that is apply. See, if you have a data frame, you need to just supply the data frame as X here. Margin means whether you want to apply a particular function on rows or on columns. And function is what function do you want to apply. Like I'll just take an example to make it clear here. See, to demonstrate the use of apply function, suppose I have a big data set of thousands and millions of rows. So if I need to find row of all sum of all the rows, or in another task I need to find sum of all the columns. So what I can do is simply use again one line coders. Df is equal to data frame dot women. You just read this data frame, the data of in the women data set in a df. That's an object, data frame object. Then to summarize row wise data, use the apply function. Apply df is our data set 1 comma sum. So if you, this is margin. If you see, to apply read about margin. If margin is equal to 1, data in rows is processed. If margin is equal to 2, then the data in columns is processed. So we need row wise data. So we write apply df comma 1, and what function do you want to apply? You want to apply sum, mean, whatever you want to apply. You can specify name of the function here. You can even have your custom built-in uh, you can have a built-in function, or you can have a user-defined function here. So this is the row-wise sum. If you want a column-wise sum, then you just have to make one small change. That is, you'll set df is equal to 2. So when there are two columns in the data set, height and weight. So sum of all the values in this data set is 975. The height and the weight is 2051. Going to the next function, that is tapply. Here, it's similar to apply, but with a little variation. Like x is here a vector, and index specifies with respect to which vector you want to analyze. Function is can be anything. And then you have a simplify function to return a vector. Let's take an example. See, program here tapply empty cars is the name of a data set that is already available in our language. It has fields mpg and cyl, that is cylinders, and then mean. You want to find out mean. Then of empty cars mpg column with respect to number of cylinders. So this is your data, and with respect to this, uh, the second argument you want to analyze. So value, there are three values of cylinder, 4, 6 and 8. So you are finding mean of all the MPG values having cylinder 4, mean of all the MPG values having cylinder 6, and mean of all the MPG values having cylinder equal to 8. So you are analyzing data of one column with respect to another column. Let's look at another example. T apply iris. Iris is another data set freely available with R. Then iris, sepal dot length, iris dollar species. So iris name of the data set and species is the name of the column. Iris is the data set and sepal dot length is the name of the column. Then mean. I want to find mean of sepal length with respect to species. So we have three species here, Cetos, versicolor and virginica. So we are finding mean value of their sepal lengths. So when we analyze, we find that the third species has highest uh, length of the sepal as compared to the other two. Next, if we see, if we interchange, if we write iris dot petal length, now what we are doing is analyzing the petal length here. In the first example, in the next example, we are analyzing the petal length with respect to each species. So we are analyzing petal length. So we're writing it as the first argument. Second, with respect to, we are finding it with respect to the species, and then we're finding mean. You could have used any other function here. Then the table function. Um, I very much like this table function, which I use very frequently. Table is used to for getting a quick summary of two or more rows in a data set. For example, if I make give you basically it gives a frequency, like if in the table, if I'm mentioning empty cars dot cylinder comma empty cars dot gear, so it will make a table like this table shows that there are two vehicles, the number of vehicles having 6 cylinders and three gears. So here we have 6 cylinders and 3 gears. The value is 2. So similarly, if I say, we can say we have 8 vehicles with a cylinder, 4 cylinder and 4 gear. So it's instead of analyzing every value, we can just try to get a summary picture. Right. These are again, let's discuss some more codes, very interesting ones. I find reason why I liked our language was the question used to be bigger and the answers used to be smaller. Previously, we were habitual of having very small questions but very long answers. So now, question is big and the answer is small. So let's see this code. um, we have this in operator. Like here, what we are trying to do is we are in the empty cars data set, we are finding only those values where the gear is either 3 or 4. Whenever we have multiple values, we use the C function. So in operator, so gear in 3 or 4, empty cars, we are filtering the data set, and then we are using the head function. Head function is basically used to print with the first 5 rows or the 10 rows. You can even specify how many rows you want to print. To select all columns whose name starts with C. So you are using empty cars starts with C. So there are these just see the name of the functions. They are so very implicit to the cause. So you are using this empty cars dataset and printing only those values where the value starts with C. Right. Now, to get distinct values for a column, we have the distinct function. So select df dot gear. There can be multiple values, but and some of the values would definitely repeat. So we want only unique values. So we'll use a distinct function. And here we can specify which column value do you want. Then there is another very powerful function, that is the summarize function. In the summarize function, we just need to tell how to summarize the data set. Like if we have a data set df, and then we are using average departure delay is equal to mean departure delay, and na.rm is equal to true. So we are finding mean of the delay function, delay column in our data set. We will get back to this function once again. Pipe operator uh, to combine multiple operations in just one single line, that too very clearly and in a very clean way. See, in a pipe operator, your result sets jumps from one pipe to the other pipe. Like here you have a data frame. We supply this data frame as an input to the filter function. Whatever will be the output of this filter function will be passed as an input to the sample function. Output of the sample function will be passed as an input to the average arrange function, and the output of the arrange function will be supplied as an input to the select function. So coming back here, filter, we have the entire data set, but we are interested only in those rows where gear is equal to 4. Now only those selected rows will be passed to the sample function. In those rows we may have hundreds and thousands of records, but we are interested only in the any sample n5. So any you are taking out 5 rows, then we are arranging it in descending order, with descending with respect to the value of mpg, and then you are printing the values, all the values except gear, vs, and am. See the observe that there is a minus sign before the column names. When you write minus sign before a column name, that means do not include this in the result set. Do not include the value of these columns in the result set. So in the resultant set, you have all the columns except gear, VS, and AM. So we'll be taking some more examples in the next few slides. Here we have discussed the summarize function once again. We were discussing this summarize, DF, average departure delay, and we are trying to find out mean departure delay. So here is the result. So instead of going through all the rows, we get the mean departure delay of all the slides, of all the flights we have. And you can also use group by function. Like here we have used summarize group by df.gear and the mean mpg. We are using the empty cars data set. What we have done is uh, group by like we've already if you have studied SQL, so if we have a list of all the students in our college, what we can do is make two groups, group by undergraduates and postgraduates. So here instead of we simply have the group by function. You don't have to write SQL big queries. Again, see the one liner code, one function call is enough to do this work. You are grouping the data set with respect to the column gear, and then finding out the mean value of each gear. You have three values for gear, 3, 4, and 5, and the mean value is 16.1 for gear 4, 24.5, and then 21.4. Let's look to the other example that calculates the sum and mean of MPG. You have multiple columns. The difference between the two codes is here you have multiple columns, and in the previous code you had just one column based on cylinder values. So here we have three values of cylinder, 4, 6, and 8. So what we are supposed to find out? We are supposed to supposed to group by cylinders. So we've already grouped here. We have three groups of cylinders, and then what we are trying to find out, MPG, we are trying to find out functions sum and mean for variables like MPG, carb, and Q6. So you here see MPG sum, carb sum, Q6 sum, then MPG mean, carb mean, and Q6 mean. Some more codes here, utilizing your pipe operator and filter and all the functions that we've discussed so far. So write a program to select only HP, DRAT, WT. These are the name of the columns which you want in your data sets, and select only those rows having value 1 for the AM column. You are minimizing, you are improving, adding on to your restrictions and minimizing the resultant set. So finally the resultant set should be grouped by gear and arranged in descending order. So see, you got a complex query here, but the resultant code is very simple. What you will do in such situation is you will read one by one and then draft the queries. use the functions accordingly. So instead of going in one go, you just break down the entire query into multiple parts and then write function for each. So here you are using a pipe operator. The data set is empty cars. Then you are sending this data set to the select. What the first task you have to do is select only HP, DRAT, WT, QSEC, VS, AM, and gear columns. So here they comes in sequence. So we have used HP colon gear. So only these columns data would be selected. Then we pass on this data to the filter. We have to apply a filter because we need only those rows where AM is equal to 1. Then from these rows, we need only these rows should be grouped by gear. So we are grouping here, and then we need to, before presenting the results, we need to arrange them in descending order with respect to WT column. So we are using the arrange function, descending. By default, it sorts in ascending values. Now we are specifically writing DESC and descending, and then with respect to WT column. So this one line of code simplifies your entire task. Let's see another example. I'll quickly go on because it's already time. Write a program that uses empty cars dataset to display MPG WT display values for rows and with highest gear grouped by. So you have multiple tasks to do. You take a dataset, you group by first, and then you filter because you need the highest gear value. So we have a function min rank, and you have gear is equal to 1. Minimum rank means the highest rank. Um with highest rank, and then you are selecting only the values of those columns that are actually required in the data set. That is MPG, WT, and DISP. Two more codes. Write a program that prints a number of flights where arrival time is you want to find all those flights which arrived earlier than the scheduled time. So there is a flights data set already available. It's in this package NYC flights 13. So you need only those. You need only certain data records, not all. So filter DF array arrival time is less than schedule time, and then you are summarizing number of flights. How many flights arrived? So N is the function you are using, right? Next program. Write a program that uses the flights dataset group by you are grouping by destination column and then finding the mean and average delays where average delay is less than 0. So you have multiple conditions again here. So you're using the dataset flights and you're grouping by destination. Just write one this thing. Then you are summarize. You are supposed to summarize. Find the mean of average delays. Mean of average arrival delays where it is less than 0. So you're just reading the English and coding it. Just simply writing it. So that is the beauty of these codes. You are summarizing because summarizing in such a way that you find the mean value of all the flights where arrival delay is less than 0. So in a way, we can say all those flights which arrived late. Or early. Okay. Now, so coming back to our main topic, that is social media mining, we can collect a lot of data from Facebook, from Twitter, or from whenever you buy a product, you write a review. There's so many comments, reviews available. So you can collect all those data and then analyze in your R code or any data science application. But for that, what we need to there's some certain things which are common to all applications. We need to remove the punctuation mark. We have to clean that data like we did in the data science lifecycle model. We have to first clean the data. We have to remove all the punctuation marks. We have to make it all in lowercase or in the uppercase. We have to move one line code stop words. We have to remove like and the. We have to remove also such words for before we analyze. Stemming like play and playing, played, they actually all refer to the same word. So these are certain things which are common to all the applications. And one term that we would be using it, we frequently use is document term matrix. See, here you see a matrix. Document term matrix says uh, here we have all the documents where that particular word appears. This term one, term two, and here the cell value is the how many times the word has repeated. And if you say term document, the terms come on the row side and column maybe have the document. So term document and document term means actually means the same. It's just a switching of rows and columns. Here is a very see again a one line code to form a DTM document to matrix. If there is a you if you have a doc file or one or more documents you have, you can just use pass it in the function document term matrix, and it will give you the outputs like this. Okay. So here, for example, if you can see in the term document matrix, um, yeah, term M appear, yeah, see here in tweet one, term three appeared only once. So this is how we read it. So we find out all the frequently used terms, and then we see what majority of the customers are saying using what words for your products. They're saying using it good, bad, satisfied, not satisfied, such words. So here is a sample code to for social media mining. What we are doing here is we have some text files. We are clubbing all those text files, reading all the text that is printed in that file, and then we are analyzing it. We are using lapply function. What lapply function? We are uh, extracting text from content written in all the files, and then we are making it as a single text. Now once we have that text, we remove all the white space characters, all the digits, because we need only useful text for analysis. We need clean text so that we can form the word cloud. Now all the characters will be now be in lower characters. Now then we need to remove the stop words. Every language has a set of its own stop words. Like we are using the stop words of English. It is already available in R. And then once you are removing all single like um, one character words actually makes no sense during analysis, so we are removing those, we are cleaning our data, and then we are finally removing extra spaces, and then we are finally using the word cloud function here to form a word cloud. And in a word cloud, data that is more prominent, more frequently used is shown as more prominent, like data, product, let, like, will, scientist. So in these documents I have more frequent terms like these. We can even make what we can make a comparison word cloud to see what words are repeated in one document, what words are repeating in other documents. The function here that would be comparison dot cloud. We make a document matrix for each and every document, and then we make a comparison cloud. For Twitter mining, for extracting data from Twitter, it's very simple. See, you need to create a developer account, and then Twitter will give you some customer keys, secret token. It is see, I have put a cross, but actually it is not cross. It will be unique for every user, and I cannot share it with, and we need not share it with anybody else, because Twitter keeps a check what data you are extracting from Twitter, and you are responsible for your own, like it's like your passwords. You're responsible for your own credentials. So I've put XX here, and here is the API. Here's the function call to access to create an connection with Twitter. And if I want to extract 10 recent tweets from President Trump, so I will just write user is equal get user function. I will use name of the user. I want Trump's tweets, and user, and from his timeline I need only 10 tweets, so I will specify I need only 10 streams. It will extract multiple thousands of tweets, but I need only 10 streams. So it's just only two-line code that is very simple. If I need to find out, get the trends on I want to know what the entire world is talking about today in different locations of the world. So what I will do is, here I'll set up a connection with Twitter. This is the code that is common for everybody, for every task that you do on Twitter using your developer account. And then world trends, get trends, you'll specify the ID one. This is a where on earth ID. If you want to, every city has a different ID. If you want to see the entire world tweets, you will put ID as one. So get trends. You will know what are the trending words that are going on Twitter today. So you are printing. You can even select how many trends you want. 3, 5, 10, 20. How many words? Okay. So next, now you want to find trend location of the world. This we've already done. Write a program that extracts 500 tweets about Indian economy. What people are talking about Indian economy, if you want to know. So you till here you'll set up a connection, and then you will find search Twitter mention the keyword Indian economy, how many tweets you want, n is equal to 500. Language, you want only English or you want some other language, you can specify. You have codes for each language. And the result type is recent, the most recent what people are saying. You can even have some historical tweets, but we want the recent tweets. So and then once we get the tweets, we can put it in data frames and then apply our analysis in any way. We can form a word cloud, or you can put it in a CSV. You can apply all the functions that we've been discussing so far. Next, web scraping. It's a very important thing. Web scraping means we extract images, we extract information from websites. Like if you have, I would discuss a small project that we did with the students on web scraping, very useful tool. Um, but to give an example, like if you open the Amazon website, you are interested only on the user comments. So what we are going to do is we are going to extract only the comments. We are not interested in any other things. Like if you moreover, if you go to an IMDb data set, you want to know all the movies that all of the which had rating above 9. So you are you want interested only in the rating and name of the movie. So you can extract only useful information instead of all the information from the websites, and you can read the information in the R code for further analysis. So, as I discussed, I'll talk about my tool that I did with my students. What we did is you have seen Practo, and similar websites are there for all the services these days. So what we did is we scrapped the websites. Even if you see Trivago, what it is doing, it started with an idea that it scrapped the websites of different airlines and different hotels websites, and it extracted the information, the price, and on one particular website you could see, you just have to enter the destination and you could see the hotel name of the hotels and the prices being offered. So it all, you had a one single umbrella. You don't have to jump to every hotel's website. So that is the main power of your web scrapping. And what tool we developed is, we use the Practo website. We extracted name of the doctor, his rating, his timings, and then the fees that he or she charges. And then we made a software tool so that we can analyze, use that tool. It pulls the information from the Practo website, and like if it's 8 in the night and I want to know the doctor that is available in my budget, so I can just use that tool, use that app, and then filter my records accordingly. Um, so the code again, this is a web scraping code that is again very simple. You have to use a library, and then you specify read.html. You need to read the HTML coding of this website. This is the URL of the website. And then if you want to see the ratings, so you should know, see, if you right click on the page, you can see view source. And in fact, a better tool is selector gadget. That is an extension to Chrome that you can use. So you can know which the node which you want to read, and then you extract information from that node, and then you can use it for analysis. You can make here what we have done. We can make a data frame storing all the relevant information and ignoring all the rest of the information that we extract from a particular web page. Moving from ML to auto ML, this is now the age of auto machine learning, not machine learning. Machine learning has been left so far now. Like for to apply machine learning techniques, we are going so dumb as humans. Like we need to have information about domain specific knowledge, and mathematics and so many other knowledge we must have to be a very good machine learning engineer. So now we can go as auto ML. Google and Microsoft is already in this domain. What you have to do is just specify the data, and it will automatically apply all the machine learning tools and tell you which algorithm would work best for this data set, with what accuracy can this data set be predicted, used for prediction, classification, and clustering. So that is all about auto ML, and this is very much possible now in R also. And these are some sample projects which I wanted to discuss. When we start with our second year students, and then the complexity of the projects increases every year. So to start with, if you can analyze the data to psychometric tests, you can apply for fun's sake. You can collect data of all the students in your class, and then you can apply. You can tell inclination of that person in a particular domain. Then you can suggest which career would be best. Like you can you we some of the students made a software for this in class 10 students. So which stream they should take up, and then to check their aptitude, you can check the aptitude of the students, you can predict marks, you can find out the probability of a disease. Like during COVID, these softwares were very much commonly used. There were also software like you can put the x-ray of your chest and it can tell how much vulnerable you are to this disease. Then to conduct a fingerprint test to find out your personality traits. Many students have shown interest. Deep learning techniques were used. These projects have already been done by us. So very simple ones. So with second year students we did. So then there's some example healthcare tool as I discussed. Then fake news. This was a very we did it 2 years back. Like when the trend was we never knew. We have an information whether it's fake or it's genuine. What we these students use scrapping thing. What they did was if they have a piece of information, they would check from known renowned websites like Times of India and ST or Google News. They would check whether that information appears there also. If the information matches, then that means there is some genuinity behind the news. Otherwise, it's a fake news. So I think I have quickly wind up with my presentation. Any questions, please ask. I would also say, we are always open to do some more projects in research and tool development. So in case if anybody is interested, you can always feel free to write to me. And students in our university, Delhi University, we have a CIC and we Cluster Innovation Center, and students here are very good. We can coordinate if faculties are there or students are there. You can always collaborate and work on these projects. So, any queries? Sure, ma'am, we'll be selecting. We'll be definitely be sharing this PPT. Thank you. Thank you so much. Any research, paper writing, article writing, or a tool development, definitely we can do because research is being done. And today, the government wants us to because I am in a government institution, and our principal always emphasizes to have collaboration with other colleges and other, because we lack in infrastructure. But the type of students we get are we have the cream. Delhi University has the cream of the entire country. So we have good students, but we lack in little bit in infrastructure. So we can always collaborate. Although it's interested students from your college and from our college can work under our guidance, definitely. I have given my email ID. You can always use that. And I'm there on LinkedIn. You can always message me. I check that LinkedIn every day, so I will get back to you. Yes, ma'am. Definitely, we can have source codes because those projects have already been done, so we have no issue sharing. Definitely, we can share the details of the projects also. Thank you so much for your appreciation. Yes, we can always import data in our studio. But we have not discussed it because the time limit. But it is there in the book, and you can at least see the PPTs. We have PPTs for that chapter. Certificates will be issued in a day or two. Yes, ma'am. Definitely, we you can write your email IDs to get we'll get in touch with you to get a copy of the book. We must be having the we have the registration details, so we'll send a copy of the certificate. For thesis writing, sir, it depends upon which domain you are interested in. You're doing your PhD, or you want to start with your PhD work. Mm, I'll please give me your email. I'll share. I am copying your email ID, and then I'll suggest, because I think okay, for the book and for the project details also you're asking for thesis, because it's something like confidential. We should not. I'll write to you. What are the potential research areas in this field where even we are working? Please write to me. We'll get in touch. We'll make a team of students and the faculties, and then we can take up some projects. Definitely. I'll save these chats, so please share your email IDs. Thank you so much for sharing. No, no, ma'am, we have not yet shared on GitHub. Maybe the students would have done. I am not very sure, but at least I have not shared. MSc thesis depends upon, I think, university. It depends whether how many. We can always have two, but the issue is whether from the same universe, because I think initially we could have supervisors from two different universities, but then came a guideline that the same university teachers can act as supervisors. I don't know what is the current status, because things keep changing, rules and regulations keep changing. And after COVID started, we are not going to college, so I'm not in updated about those status if it has changed again.